I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am. My wife Emily and I have been together for nearly 10 years. We got married young, built a life, had 2 kids, and for the most part I thought things were good. Sure, we had our usual disagreements. She's a bit of a diva, always acting like she's too busy for anyone's nonsense, and she's incredibly bitchy when she's annoyed. But I guess I just chalked that up to her personality. She's always been good at hiding her true feelings behind a mask of sarcasm and sharp words. We decided to go on this family vacation because we thought it would be good for the kids, get away from the daily grind, spend some quality time. We booked a week at a beach resort, all inclusive, with the kids excited about swimming and building sandcastles. I was looking forward to some downtime, a chance to relax with my family. Well, that was until the first sign of trouble appeared, and I didn't even realize it at the time. Emily had been acting a little off since we arrived, but I just attributed it to her being stressed. She's always been like that, snappy, irritable, quick to dismiss anything I say. She's also been strangely secretive about her phone, constantly keeping it close, even more than usual. She'd sneak peeks at messages when she thought I wasn't looking, and I noticed her texting late into the night. I didn't want to think too much about it. I told myself she was just stressed about the trip, about the kids, about work piling up. Still, there was this gnawing feeling in my stomach that something wasn't right. One evening, I was in the hotel room trying to get the kids to sleep. Emily had gone to the bathroom and I saw her phone lying on the bed. I normally wouldn't do this, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up and started scrolling through her messages. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were texts that didn't make any sense, flirty, intimate messages with someone named Jake. I knew Jake. He's her coworker, a guy she's always been a little too friendly with, but I never thought he'd cross the line. Not like this. Their messages were filled with innuendos, jokes about sneaking around, plans to meet up after hours when no one else was around. She was talking about how she'd missed him at work that day, how she loved their little secret, how she couldn't wait to see him again. The worst part, she was clearly lying about what she was doing at the time. She told me she was packing for the kids, helping them get ready for bed, but there she was, talking about sex, about Jake touching her, about how she was craving his touch. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, my partner, the woman I trusted more than anyone, was cheating on me right under my nose. I felt my hands tremble. I closed her phone and sat there for a long minute trying to process what I'd just seen. She lied about everything, her schedule, her actions, her feelings. All this time I'd been blind to the fact that she was sneaking around with Jake. It hit me hard, the betrayal, the lies, the way she played the innocent wife while she was out there screwing her coworker. I didn't sleep that night, and I knew that everything I believed about our life, about her, was shattered. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I'd seen, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I kept staring at the door to the kids' room, hearing their giggles and the sound of them playing. It was supposed to be a happy vacation, but all I could think about was that message, that betrayal. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I hadn't seen the signs earlier, how I hadn't known she was up to this. Emily was already up, acting like everything was normal. She was in the shower, humming some tune, and I just sat there, staring at my hands. My stomach was clenched with a mixture of anger, hurt, and confusion. She came out of the bathroom, fresh and seemingly oblivious to what I knew. She smiled a little too sweetly, asking if I wanted coffee. I wanted to scream at her, to tear her apart with words, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to blow up right then. I didn't want to scare the kids. But I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to confront her, and I had to do it sooner rather than later. When she sat down with her coffee, I looked at her and just said, "Emily, I need to talk to you about something serious." Her smile faltered a little, and she looked at me with that fake, innocent expression she always put on when she was trying to dodge something. She said, "What's wrong? Did you find something on your phone?" That's when I decided I'd had enough of the lies. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her face instantly changed. The fake smile disappeared, replaced with a look of annoyance, then defiance. She scoffed and said, "Oh, come on, it's just some stupid jokes. Jake and I are just friends, you're overreacting. I couldn't believe she was lying so blatantly. I told her I didn't care about her stupid excuses. I told her I saw what she was doing, I saw what she was saying, and I knew she'd been cheating on me. Her response was a mixture of anger and denial. She told me I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that I did understand how stressful our life was and how she needed someone to talk to. She said Jake was just a friend, that they'd never done anything more than talk. She even had the nerve to say she was planning to tell me everything if I kept bringing it up, like she was trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. I felt my blood boiling. Everything inside me was screaming that this wasn't just some innocent flirtation. It was betrayal, plain and simple. The woman I married, the woman I loved, had been sneaking around behind my back, probably for months. I kept quiet for a while, just staring at her, trying to hold myself together. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I didn't. Instead, I just told her I needed some time to think. I said I'd be in the hotel room if she wanted to talk more, but I knew I'd be spending that time trying to figure out how I was going to deal with this mess. Part of me felt numb, another part was furious. I kept thinking about everything I'd done for her, working hard, providing, trusting her. And this is what I got in return. I never thought love could be so hollow, so full of lies. I wondered if the woman I married even cared about me, or if she was just using me as a paycheck, a comfortable life to hide her cheating. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that she was cheating or that she had lied so effortlessly, so convincingly, to my face. This was the beginning of something I knew would change everything. After I confronted her, Emily just sat there, silent for a long moment, then gave me that typical bitchy smirk she always used when she thought she was winning an argument. She told me I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure, and that Jake was just a coworker who liked to flirt. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing and that I was being paranoid. Honestly, hearing her say that made me want to throw something. How could she be so indifferent, so dismissive of what she'd done? It was like she was more annoyed that I caught her than actually caring about the betrayal. I kept calm, though. I told her I wasn't going to fight with her right now. I needed to think, and I needed her to understand just how serious this was. She rolled her eyes, shook her head, and said, "Whatever, you're blowing this out of proportion. Just relax and stop being so dramatic." That was her go-to line: dismiss, minimize, deny. She always thought she could get away with anything by just calling me insecure or crazy. But I wasn't going to let her. I knew what I saw, what I read, and I knew she was lying her ass off. I went back to the hotel room, slammed the door behind me, and just sat there for what felt like hours. My mind kept circling the images of her messages. I kept hearing her voice in my head, the way she lied so effortlessly. How she told me she was packing for the kids, how she said she was helping them get ready for bed, all while she was secretly texting Jake about sex, about sneaking around, about how she loved the thrill of lying to her own husband. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone I trusted could do that, how she could look me in the eyes and lie so convincingly. The worst part, I didn't even know how to feel anymore. I was angry, yeah, but also hurt. Deep down, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It's like I was standing in this cloud of betrayal, trying to breathe but feeling like I was suffocating. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs all along, if I'd been blind to who she really was. I kept thinking about all the times she'd been bitchy, dismissive, and distant. Was that just her way of hiding how guilty she felt? Or was that just her personality? I didn't know anymore. Everything felt so fragile, so broken, and honestly, I wondered if I even knew her at all. I kept replaying the moment I found her messages, how I felt that sick rush of betrayal. I kept thinking about how I trusted her, and she'd been sneaking around with Jake right under my nose. I felt stupid for not noticing sooner, for not realizing she was capable of this. I was furious at her, furious at myself, and overwhelmed with confusion. I felt this horrible mix of wanting to confront her again, wanting to scream at her, and just wanting to crawl into a hole and hide from the world. I'd always believed marriage was about trust, about loyalty, about having someone you could count on. And now, that trust was shattered like glass breaking into a million pieces. I knew I couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. I had to decide what was next, but right then, all I felt was this overwhelming sense of loss and betrayal. That afternoon, I couldn't stand to stay in the hotel room anymore. I needed to get out, clear my head, maybe find some space from her bullshit. I grabbed my phone and called my brother, Mike. He's always been the one guy I can rely on, the one person who doesn't sugarcoat things. I told him everything about the messages, my suspicion, the confrontation, how I felt like my whole world was crumbling. He listened patiently, then said, "Look, man, you're in a tough spot, but you've got to ask yourself, do you want to keep her? Or is this the point where you finally wake up and see what's really going on?" That hit me hard. That's exactly what I'd been thinking, but hearing it out loud made it real. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep acting like her lies were just misunderstandings. Mike told me to come over and stay with him for a while, get away from her, breathe. So I left the hotel, feeling like I was walking through a fog. When I got to his place, I just collapsed on the couch and told him everything again, from start to finish. As I spoke, I realized how much rage was building inside me. I trusted Emily for years, built a life around her, and now I felt like a fool. I couldn't believe she'd been so callous, so indifferent to betray me like this during what should have been a family vacation. Mike looked at me and said, "You gotta decide what's more important, staying and fighting for this or walking away. But don't let her bullshit fool you. You deserve better than someone who cheats and lies." His words stung, but they were honest. I knew deep down he was right. I'd always tried to believe in the best of her, but now I saw her for what she was: selfish, manipulative, and reckless with my trust. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the future, about what I should do. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand answers, tell her I knew everything. The other part just wanted to leave, walk out the door, and never look back. The thought of staying with her felt like a betrayal to myself, but the fear of losing everything, the kids, the life we built, was just as overwhelming. I kept asking myself, was I strong enough to leave? Or was I just too scared to face the reality that she might not love me anymore? All I knew was I couldn't keep pretending. The facade was cracking wide open. She was the same bitchy, manipulative woman I'd always known, but now I saw her without the mask. She was a liar, a cheat, and I was this close to just walking away from it all. The pain was sharp, but part of me felt relief, finally seeing her for who she really was. That's when I realized I was at a crossroads, and I had to make a decision, no matter how much it hurt. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache, but my mind was clear. I knew what I had to do. Staying in that limbo, pretending everything was okay, wasn't an option anymore. I couldn't keep living with this secret, this lie. I decided I'd confront her one last time, call her, or better yet, talk to her face to face. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted to hear from her why she thought she could get away with this. When I got back to the hotel, Emily was waiting in the lobby. She looked annoyed, like I was the one disrupting her day. I told her I needed to talk to her, just us. She hesitated, but eventually followed me to the hotel room. I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. I pulled out the messages on my phone and showed her again, demanding she explain herself. Her reaction was classic Emily. She rolled her eyes, scoffed, and said I was overreacting. "You're making a huge deal out of nothing," she snapped. "I was just talking to Jake. It's not like we did anything. You're so paranoid." She tried to dismiss it, as if her cheating was just some harmless flirting. A joke, something I shouldn't be so worked up about. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I knew everything about the sex, the sneaking around, the lies, and I was done pretending. I said she could lie all she wanted, but I saw her for what she was: a dishonest, selfish woman who didn't care about our marriage. She got defensive, started yelling, saying I was controlling, that I didn't trust her, that she deserved some freedom. She accused me of being jealous, insecure, and said I was just trying to ruin her life. Honestly, I'd never seen her so bitchy. She was furious, and I think she finally realized I wasn't backing down. I told her she had one last chance to tell me the truth or I was leaving. And then she snapped. Said she didn't love me anymore, that she was tired of pretending, tired of the lies, tired of the marriage. That she'd been unhappy for a long time and that Jake made her feel alive, something I never could. She admitted she'd been cheating for a few months, maybe longer, and that it was her way of doing what she wanted without consequences. She looked at me with this cold, calculating expression, and for the first time I saw that she didn't care. Not really. The shock hit me hard. I felt like the ground was tilting beneath my feet. I'd spent so long trying to believe in us, in her, and now I saw it was all a lie. I don't know what I expected her to say, but it sure as hell wasn't that. I told her she could take her lies, her cheating, her Jake, and she could leave. Just walk out the door and never come back. I told her I'd file for divorce and I'd take the kids and she could go do whatever she wanted, so long as she stayed out of my life after that. She stormed out, cursing and yelling, but I didn't care. I felt this strange numbness, like I'd finally cut the cord. For years, I'd been the good guy, the one who tried to fix things, who forgave her bitchy attitude, who kept giving her the benefit of the doubt. But that day, I realized I was done. Done with her lies, her manipulations, her thoughtless betrayal. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I'd never let her do this to me again. That moment was a wake-up call. I finally saw her for who she really was, and I couldn't pretend anymore. It hurt like hell, but at least now I was free from her deception. The pain was raw, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I was finally honest with myself. I wasn't going to stay and rebuild what was already broken. I decided I'd get away from her, start over, and make sure my kids knew the truth someday. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal cuts deep, more than I ever thought possible. In the days that followed, everything changed so fast I could hardly keep up. I filed for divorce, got full custody of the kids, and moved out of the house. I didn't want to see her or hear her voice again. Every time I thought about what she did, my stomach clenched with anger, but underneath that, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally woken up from a nightmare I'd been living in for years. The hardest part was dealing with the aftermath of all her lies. My friends and family were supportive, but even they couldn't believe how someone could be so selfish, so reckless. I kept replaying that moment she told me she didn't love me anymore, how she admitted to cheating with Jake during our family vacation. The betrayal cut so deep because I'd always thought of her as my partner, my best friend. Turns out, she was just pretending to be that person. Over time, I learned to rebuild myself. I focused on the kids, making sure they knew they were loved, even if their mother was a terrible example of what a wife and mother should be. I started going to therapy, talking through everything, the anger, the hurt, the confusion. It helped me see that I was not at fault for her actions. She made her choices, and I had to accept that sometimes people change and not for the better. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to believe she'd ever truly change or that she cared about us the way I thought she did. She lied and cheated so effortlessly, it was like she didn't care about the damage she inflicted. But I learned something important from this. Never ignore the signs, never dismiss your gut feelings. Trust is everything in a relationship, and once that's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. Now I focus on moving forward. I may be scarred, but I refuse to let her betrayal define me. I've started dating again, cautiously, trying to rebuild my sense of trust. The scars are still there, but I know they'll fade with time. I won't dwell on her anymore. I've learned a harsh lesson about trust, about honesty, about the importance of standing up for myself. Most importantly, I've realized that I deserve better. I deserve someone who respects me, who values loyalty, and who wouldn't cheat during a family vacation. I hope sharing this might help someone else see the signs before it's too late. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal hurts, but sometimes you have to face the pain to find a way back to who you really are. And I'm finally on that path.